Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to see such a big turnout today. I'm really enthusiastic about this webinar. I'm going to go through what's new in ForNAV version 3. So let's get started. Let me start with a couple of highlights. What have we changed in this release? We have made some improvements to the converter. We actually simplified the user interface. There were a couple of things that we got feedback that people find it confusing, so we simplified the options in the converter and we made some improvements. Two of my favorite improvements are setting the code page. We got some feedback from the guys in Asia, Bangkok, and Japan on code pages, and we also improved the way that classic reports are converted. That if we can avoid moving a control to a data set and we can just use a JavaScript, we actually do that instead. So you don't have to clean up the data set after the report is converted. The designer is also improved. I'm going to show you a couple of these improvements today. But one of the most interesting ones is the way that we work with watermarks. In ForNAV version 2, you had to install bullzip PDF printer and write some AL code to do watermarks, and that has been dramatically improved, I would say. And I'm going to show you today how you can work with watermarks in the designer. We also improved the Excel experience. We also worked together with a couple of financial controllers to ask them how they work with Excel, and we implemented some of the improvements in our standard reports. And we improved the way that we work with barcodes. That's just a subset of the changes that we did. There's a lot of changes to the designer, very simple things that make life easier, like ignore casing when you search for fonts. We improved the RDLC conversion a bit more, so it's easier to convert an existing RDLC report to ForNAV. We allow appending and prepending PDFs when you print, for example, an order confirmation. This allows you to very easily attach, for example, legal conditions, or if you sell furniture and you have instructions how to assemble the furniture, you can actually append the instructions to the shipping documents. You can print it in one go to the printer. Last but definitely not least, and this is what we are going to spend most time on today, is the standard reports. We added a set of standard reports to the ForNAV release. That'll make it easier for you to especially sell ForNAV to new customers that don't have classic reports to convert to. For the PDF features, this will be the subject of the webinar that we're going to do in October. So in October, we'll spend a lot of time on cool stuff that you can do with PDF that normally you would probably buy external DLLs for, and you can just use all of that stuff out of the box with ForNAV. To understand the value of ForNAV version 3, I'd like to go back in history a little bit. The first version of the ForNAV designer was a converter for Seaside Classic reports, and I remember seeing the first prototype, and the first prototype of ForNAV didn't even have a UI. Remember it like yesterday, because the day that Michael showed me was the day that Dave Studebaker visited me from the US. So there was kind of like two highlights in my life on one day. And in this version, we actually had to use MS-DOS prompts to convert the reports, and we didn't have a designer. If you wanted to make a change to the report, you had to go back to Seaside. Luckily for us, very soon after that, we got the designer, Designer really completed the classic conversion story. With the Designer, you can optimize the reports easily after converting them from the old version. And of course, right after that, we got the feedback that it's great to work with ForNAV. We have a great Designer. Everything is very intuitive, looks a lot like Seaside. But Microsoft still ships a lot of RDLC reports, and what if I want to make changes to those? So we actually started to add RDLC conversion to the story as well, right? So life was good. Everything is possible to be done with ForNAV. But we got the feedback that if you convert the RDLC reports, especially the data set, is very hard to work with. If you look at the sales invoice that Microsoft is shipping, report 206 or 1306, it's at least 200 or 300 fields in the data items, and we all know that ForNAV works directly with the SQL Server dataset. So you actually don't need to work with the data set that Microsoft provides from Seaside. We also included JavaScript support. JavaScript support is especially interesting from a sales perspective if you sell ForNAV to customers that have an in-house developer. Everybody that went to school that studied computer science in the last 10 years learns JavaScript. It's the most used programming language in the world, probably next to Python. And what we do in ForNAV is that we actually allow you to declare record variables directly from ForNAV, and we allow database I/O using JavaScript, and that basically almost eliminates most of the CEL code that you have to write. This is probably not a feature that your senior NAV developers will like because they don't know JavaScript, but especially end users that do a lot of in-house development will absolutely love this. And it makes buying the report designer obsolete because you can just add an extra layout from the role-threaded client and start programming JavaScript. And this is actually what we did with the standard reports as well. So we can convert classic reports, we can convert RDLC reports, we have the JavaScript story, and basically all of that led to the question like, okay, we can convert all these reports, it's really cool, but first of all, what about new customers? If you sell an AV to a new customer, you don't have any conversion, but you still want to make changes to sales invoices, and then you convert the RDLC report, you still end up with this 250 controls. So what we try to do in ForNAV version 3 is to come up with a set of standard reports that are completely optimized to work with the ForNAV designer, completely optimized to work with JavaScript, and go back to what most of us in the NAV world know as go back to simplicity, right? So this is a list of standard reports that we ship with ForNAV version 3. We think that these are the most commonly used ones. Sales documents and purchase documents. Both of these documents have a VAT version and a sales tax version. I'll explain a little bit more about that when we go through the reports. But we did extensive interviews with users from North America to try to figure out the exact requirement differences between VAT and sales tax. On top of that, we've started to add a couple of list reports or financial statements. Most of the financial statements that you find in an AV actually date back to the DOS version of Navision, and they were just converted and upgraded, but nobody actually looked back at them and said, oh, is this still the correct way of doing it? Some of the financial statements that you get in NAV, if you print them and show you to your accountant, you tell your accountant that you're using state-of-the-art products from Microsoft, they find it hard to believe because reports actually look like they came from 1994, which is actually exactly the case. And we also try to look at those reports and see, okay, how can we make them easier to maintain, easier to print to Excel, easier to perform. So it really gives you a jump start if you start implementing NAV with ForNAV. So let's start with the installation experience. We all know the challenges that you have if you have vertical solutions. If you have a solution that you want to ship, some people use NAV 2017, 2016, 2018. We have different builds. Different builds sometimes have different ways of generating the C# code behind the scenes. So we think we have came up with a nice way of making the installation work. And I'm going to take you through the installation process during the webinar. The first thing you have to do is download the latest release from our website, which you can find on fornav.com/download. Here you can find the ForNAV version 3, and this is exactly what I did. If I start the ForNAV designer, this is the ForNAV version 3 designer, and if I click on the new icon, for some of you who remember the version 2, in version 2 there was this little arrow here, and the arrow allowed you to create a new report, a list report, or a document report. But if you click on new now, you actually get a nice dialog window. You can still go to the report template that we shipped with version 2 if you like those, if you want to get started with a new list report. But you can also click on the ForNAV report pack. If you click on the ForNAV report pack, basically what we do is we embed an HTML page. And on this HTML page, you can actually start configuring your report pack. The report pack is CFMD, which means that you can add our granules to your customer license. If you want to start doing that, you can simply send an email to Jan, and Jan will activate your partner ID in the voice system from Microsoft. And once this is completed, you can add the report pack to your customer licenses. It's completely free of charge, so everybody who is also existing ForNAV users can start leveraging this. But if you just want to play around with the report pack, if you are not sure if you like it, or you want to just play around and see what we did, you can actually just change this to 70,000 or 80,000 or whatever object number is available in your Cronus database. And this will download the report pack in any partner license, so you can just play around and see what we have created. So I'm just going to choose 70,000 for my object numbering. The menu suite ID is also configurable. If you have customers that already have a lot of existing add-ons, you may want to look at your customer and select if this menu suite is already taken. And then you can change it with 59 or 58 or something that is not being used at the moment. Then you pick your NAV version, and the reason we had to do this is the code that we have created in a report pack is optimized for NAV 2017. It's also optimized for extensions to be converted into Visual Studio Code. This means that we have implemented wizards and notifications and everything which is required for the specification process. But a lot of those controls are not available in NAV 2016, 15, and 2013 R2. So the difference between converting or downloading 2016 and 2017 is that if you download for 2016, you will not get the code units and the controls that we use for the notifications. That's the only difference. And the 2016 should also work for 2015 and 2013 R2. And the 2017 should also hopefully work for 2018 I'm actually using the Tenerife CTP build for this webinar. The ForNAV version is automatically populated with the build that you are currently running, which in my case is 1298, which is the latest build that we are using internally. If I click download, it will prepare the download from our website, and the download should be agnostic of your regional settings. This means that even if you work from North America or Europe or Asia, you should not get these typical NAV messages that the date and the timestamp are not converted. So I've downloaded the report pack, and now I can close this dialog and I can go back to Seaside. You can see that I've already imported the files here, but I'll remove it and I'll start from scratch. I'll just delete everything which is marked with ForNAV. Now I can just delete all of it. I'll use the force option and delete every bit of data as well. And now I can import the file that I've just created, the ForNAV report pack, ForNAV 2017. It generates all the files, and if I go to my tables, you will see that it imported the objects. It automatically generates the version list. Currently we're working with report pack 09.5. This will probably soon be replaced with version 1. If we ship a new version of the report pack, you don't have to worry about the designer. The designer will automatically be updated with the latest build from the report pack. We actually use PowerShell and GitHub behind the scenes to generate this. The date and the timestamp are blank, and we do that to make it agnostic of the timestamp in ForNAV. So what I can do now is filter on all the uncompiled objects and just compile them, and this will just make sure that everything runs just fine with the installation. If you download the objects in our ISV range, so if you download the actually quite weird number that we got from Microsoft. As a partner, you don't have the right to insert our objects. In order to fix that, we have created a FOB file that you can download from our website, and that FOB file contains blank objects that you have to import before you want to import the ForNAV report pack. This is just a one-time thing that you have to go through, and after that you can download the latest version of the report pack from this link. But in this case, I have selected the 70,000, and I have compiled all my objects. We have the menu suite. In this case, the menu suite is 1060, and now I can start going through the setup. If I go to my role-stated client and if I type ForNAV in the search window, you will find the ForNAV bits that we added, the standard financial reports, the setup, and some translations. If I go into the application setup, the setup is automatically populated with some default values. This is one way to set up the system. But we try to make the setup a little bit more intuitive, also in relation with the classification guidelines that Microsoft is giving. So let me actually restart this process. I'm going to delete my setup, and instead of running my setup from the menu suite, I'm simply going into one of our reports. Let's just pick the ForNAV VAT sales invoice, and I'm going to run the VAT sales invoice. And the system automatically detects that ForNAV has not been set up yet. So this is the first time that we actually run the setup. And now I can simply say, okay, I want ForNAV to have the default values. And if I click yes, I can just continue with the report. I can actually do that, and I can just preview the report, and the ForNAV setup will have selected the default values. Sometimes you don't want to have the default values, so let's go through this process just one more time. I'm going to delete the setup record again, and now I'm going to run the report, and again it detects that this is the first time I am installing or using ForNAV, and now I select no, and this takes me to a nice setup wizard experience. It explains what it wants to do. We have several documents that are optimized. Let's go. And now we actually have to select the localization. Here we have 3 options. Worldwide, which is probably the database that a lot of ISVs use for testing and programming. With us as well, we actually use the worldwide to do testing. And then we have North America and other. And the cool thing is that we actually automatically detect if this is the correct localization. So if I now switch to North America, it says this is not the localization you are using. We actually detect if you are in North America, and if you run our report back in North America, it automatically suggests to take North American localization. This is an important setting because this actually influences the fact if you are using the VAT or the sales tax reports. It doesn't mean that if you're in North America, you're not allowed to use VAT, because in Mexico actually doesn't have sales tax. Mexico has VAT. Mexico is the only country in the world that has letter format paper with VAT reports, right? So letter and sales tax are not a one-to-one relationship. And if you select other, you basically get the VAT reports. So let's select worldwide, which is currently the database that I'm working in. And now we can actually get a list of options. We have the VAT amount specification, and here we have a couple of options. If you're in North America, we also automatically suggest that it's not applicable. If you have sales tax, this option is not necessary. The standard Microsoft reports, like the order confirmation and the sales invoice and a credit memo, always print a VAT collector, even if you have only one VAT percentage. And the feedback we got from a lot of customers and partners is that if you only have one VAT percentage, you don't want to print a VAT collector because it's confusing and not necessary. So the default option is if you select multiple lines, the VAT collector will only be printed if you really have 2 different VAT percentages. And this happens, for example, in my own Navision system. If I sell books, the VAT percentage in Holland on books is 6%, and the VAT percentage on programming services is 21%. So every now and then I have multiple lines because I'm doing, for example, a masterclass with selling books, and then it prints the VAT collector. If you never want to show the VAT collector, you can just simply say never, or if you want to show it always, like the default value that Microsoft is doing, you simply select always, and it will go back to the default behavior that you are used with Kronos. Then we have 2 options. The first one is a payment note. Payment note is something that we inherited from North America. We noticed that a lot of companies in North America print a text like, please make all checks payable to Mark Brummel or ForNAV or something like that. So basically what you can do is you can print a payment note, and the payment note will be printed left of the totals. So where you can normally find the VAT percentage or the sales tax amount, this is where we will print payment note. Currently we don't translate the payment note yet. This is on the roadmap for the next release. This is something that we specifically build in for North America, and we kind of expect them to work in English. And then you can print legal conditions, and legal conditions are printed on the bottom of your invoice. And there you can say, okay, we are a member of this and this association, and if you go to this hyperlink, you can download our legal conditions. They are printed in a smaller font, and this is something that you can translate. This is something that you can translate to German or Danish or Dutch if you have a big group of customers in those countries. And then we have the watermarks. I'll get back to the watermarks in a minute. I first want to show you how the report looks without the watermarks. But normally you would be able to click and import watermarks here from a hyperlink. We also allow you to import a company logo, and this may be confusing at first sight. Why would we not use the company logo from the company information? But we allow vectorized logos. Watermarks and logos in ForNAV are vectorized, and vectorized means that you can zoom in extremely deep and it will still show a very sharp logo. And this is really nice if you send invoices as PDF, as it will always make sure that your invoice looks extremely sharp. Unfortunately, the standard control that Microsoft is using in the Windows client does not allow you to import a PDF. It just gives you an error message. So basically, if I click next, which I'm going to do, if I click next, what we'll do is we copy the company logo from the company information, and then afterwards you can overwrite it with a vectorized logo, because not every company may not have a vectorized logo, and then you still want to use a JPEG or PNG. Then we have two final options. Do you want to replace the current report selection? For all the document reports, we use report selections, and if you click on this option, we will replace the report selection with the ForNAV report selection. And depending on the option that you choose in the first tab, if you're in North America or anywhere else, we will replace it with the sales tax reports or the VAT reports. It also says, do you want to create the fields web service? This is something that ForNAV needs if you want to use the designer, and this automatically exposes page 7702 as a web service for working with the ForNAV designer. So now I can click next, and it says that's it. You can now enable the ForNAV report package and choose finish. And this will replace all the report selection. I can actually cancel out of this, and I can go into home, and let's go into department, sales, archive, posted sales invoices. And if I say print, it will now show the ForNAV report. And if I say preview, it'll show us the ForNAV report. You can see that we have actually used the Kronos logo. But if I zoom in, if I say I want to zoom in 500%, you can actually see that this is the edges are a little bit fuzzy. It's not extremely sharp. So let's zoom out again, full width, page width, and let's go back to the ForNAV setup. If I click on the ForNAV setup, I have the hyperlinks here to import logos or watermark, and our designer created a vectorized Kronos logo. So let's select the Kronos logo. Let's select a watermark, and let's select a financial statement watermark. I'll show you at the end of the webinar where you can find these watermarks. You can find them on the website. But if I click on this hyperlink, you can see that this is the watermark that I'm going to use for my report. And this is the watermark that I'm going to use for my financial statements. And if I click on this hyperlink, this is the logo that we're going to use instead of the one with gray colors. And you can see I can zoom in like crazy and it will still be sharp because this is vectorized PDF. Let's go back and X out of this one and go back to the sales invoice and preview the sales invoice. And now you can see it actually looks really nice with the watermark, with the Kronos logo. We have the payment note. We have the legal conditions on the bottom. Let me actually go up and show you that. Here we have the legal conditions. We'll dive more into the report later in the webinar, but this is the setup experience, and we wanted to make the setup experience as easy as possible. We believe that this is a traditional NAV setup experience that allows you to have consultants or maybe even end users to do the setup themselves. The customer top 10 list also uses the same nice watermark, and all of the reports have the same consistent modern look and feel that you can be really smart and proud of showing reports like this to your customers. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. This is the installation process. If you have any questions, if anything is not clear, we have added a knowledge base article to our website. This knowledge base article is explaining even more in detail how the setup process is going. And of course, the recording of this video or of this webinar will be available on YouTube later so you can show that to your consultants as an instruction. So we have two main things to remember. We have the default settings. Default settings just allow you to get started really quick. It's a little bit maybe a selfish thing for us to do because we do a lot of testing, and the default settings for us for testing just make it easier to work with the system. And then we have the wizard, and with the wizard we automatically detect North American localization for sales tax, and in all other cases we suggest VAT. So let's go over the design of the report a little bit more in detail. First of all, I think it's important to mention that the reports are optimized to use with the ForNAV designer. And most importantly, this means that we try to avoid using Seaside and especially the data items. By leveraging the options in ForNAV to use the built-in JavaScript, we never have to access CAL, and this especially allows your customers to modify the design from the role to the client using additional layouts. So let me show you that. If I go into Seaside, and here we have the VAT sales invoice. If I design the VAT sales invoice, you will see that we only have a handful of data items. In ForNAV, you don't have to add all the columns that you need. If you want to add fields later to the layout, you can just immediately select them from the data item in ForNAV. The only thing that we didn't have to have a way to work around is the selection of discount. I'll show you that in a second, but this is actually an API that runs into the sales line to detect if you have a discount. The VAT reports have the VAT amount line and the VAT clause, just as you are familiar with from Microsoft. But in North America, there is no need to do that. With sales tax, we have chose a different approach. So if we go into this sales tax invoice, you can see that we actually have a sales tax buffer instead of a VAT buffer. And the advantage of doing that is that it simplifies the process of working with these reports in North America. It's far less confusing to show people terminology that they are used to, rather than VAT and then translating it into sales tax. We have created two sets of reports, one for VAT and one for sales tax, simply because the differences between the two reports are too big. And we also have A4 and letter support. The A4 letter support are not embedded in the report, but it actually looks into your printer settings. This is a very important thing to remember. And one of the reasons we decided on this is that in Mexico, we have letter in combination with VAT. So we cannot kind of make a one-to-one relationship between these two combinations. We do have letter watermarks and A4 watermarks, because you can kind of guess if you have letter watermarks, the relation of the width and the length of the watermark is different. If I run the sales tax report in my W1 database, and if I preview it, the most important differences are the fact that we print the sales tax percentage in the columns. The reason why this is showing VAT is this is a W1 database, and in North America, what Microsoft did is they translated the VAT identifier into sales tax identifier. So in North America, this will automatically print sales tax, and that's one of the most important differences. The other difference is that in North America, most of the companies, or the majority of the companies that we interviewed, they actually said that they don't print the bank account information from the company information. And this is all related to the ways that in North America they work with banking compared to Europe. In North America, printing your bank account number on your invoice may actually cause fraud to occur. So the VAT report shows the bank information, but in North America it will actually automatically hide that. Of course, you can add it. It's not a big thing to add it later, but by default it will be disabled, which is the feedback that we got from our partners in North America. Then we try to make it possible to enhance the report experience without writing AL code. And let me actually show you how that works by going into the templates. I'm going into my ForNAV setup, and here I have a sales template or a purchase template. And you may have already noticed that when I designed the report from Seaside, if I go into Seaside and I have my sales invoice, there is no company information here. There's no company information record. If I go into my global variables, my global variables also don't have a company information record. And yet I'm showing the record from the company information. And if I go into ForNAV Designer, I can see that if I go into the field list, I have my header, I have my line, the VAT amount line and the VAT clause, but I also have my ForNAV set up. I have a legal condition translation, and I have company information. And we access those records using JavaScript from a global variables that we have in ForNAV. So in ForNAV, you can add global variables using company information ForNAV setup, and then you can simply write some JavaScript. And the JavaScript is reading the company information, is reading the ForNAV setup, and based on the fact that we print to a PDF or in a preview, we actually show the logo, and if you don't print to PDF, we expect you to have a pre-printed paper. So if you print this report to a real printer, it will not show the watermark. It will only show the watermark if you print to a PDF to email it later to send to the customer. This JavaScript is probably something that a lot of customer developers will find easy to work with, and it also makes it possible to design the report, to change the report without needing to have access to Seaside, which kind of solves the problem that not every customer has application builder or report designer granules in their system. So they can do everything from the ForNAV report designer, and they don't have to go into Seaside in order to make changes. The watermark and the logo are scalable. So you can make the logo bigger, smaller. We use the logo both in the financial statements and in the reports, and they will automatically scale with the report as you go with printing. Then we have the templates, and this is kind of one of the highlights that we have within ForNAV version 3. If I close this report and let's go into the Windows client and let's print the posted sales invoice. If I print the posted sales invoice and open the designer, you will notice that the controls that I'm looking at are yellow. This means that this section is not editable. I can actually try to change the control, but it simply will go back to where it came from. I cannot make any changes to this section. And the reason for that is that this section is connected to a master section. And this is true for every section in this report. And if I go into the credit memo, let's go into posted credit memos and do the same from the credit memo, you will also see that this is connected to the template. We have connected all the sales documents and all the purchase documents to a template, and this makes it possible to change a template, and then all the sales and purchase documents are automatically updated without having to change every individual report. So simple changes like I want to have the address to the left or I want to have the address to the right are automatically done by changing the watermarks, changing the templates, I'm sorry. So we have a couple of templates here. We have the sales template, purchase template, and then we have a portrait and a landscape template for the financial statements. And if I go into my sales template, depending on if I have North America or worldwide, it will go into the VAT or the sales tax template. And here I can actually make the changes I want in order to do the printing. You will also see that if I go into my Report Explorer and if I expand the header, it actually shows an easy to understand way of working with the controls. It says customer caption, bill to customer number, document date, and all of these things are explaining what I am looking at. It doesn't say Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, Control 4, the way that you get when you convert an RDLC report, because we cannot see what is actually going on in there. So this makes it very easy to work with the layout also from a power user or a consultant perspective. In ForNAV, as I've showed you in previous webinars, we also allow you, if you have a header, to include things like field lookups or field groups. All of these ForNAV features are implemented in the standard reports, so you don't have to worry about formatting of the address. It automatically inherits the formatting of the country that that you are printing to. So in Great Britain, the formatting of the zip code postcode is done differently as in Germany or Denmark. And then we also have things like customer caption. Here I have a field which is called bill to customer number. And normally if you print a standard Microsoft invoice, it will also say bill to customer number in the caption. And bill to customer number is not something that every customer understands. I mean, the customer doesn't know that you're using an AV, and they don't know the difference between a bill to customer number and a sell to customer number. So instead of doing that, we just simply print customer caption, which is the caption from the customer table, and it will simply say customer. If I preview this report, it will simply show customer, not bill to customer number, not customer number, not sell to customer number. It simply says customer. We do the same with payment terms. Payment terms are automatically translated. And another thing that we made very clear is where to find the document number. The document number is the first thing that people search for when they start keying in the report. And we made it very clear to say, okay, this is my customer number. We spend a lot of time talking to customers and users which controls are really necessary. And you can see that we really cleaned up the number of fields that we actually show. We had a large debate on due date and payment terms, but we decided to keep due date and payment terms on them both. You can remove them if you don't want to show it. So this is my my template, and in my template I can change the address, and I can make the address in red and bold, which is of course what everybody wants to see in an address. I can simply preview it and make sure that everything is correct. And if I save the changes, now all of my sales reports will print in red. The reason we can do that is the header and the line are always consistently called header and line, so we can actually use JavaScript. The JavaScript is also inherited. So if I open the credit memo and if I preview the credit memo, we have a property here which is called onPreReport master report, and this is connected to the sales template, and this automatically inherits all the JavaScript from the main report, right? So the JavaScript that you write on the main report kind of becomes a global repository that you can share across every report, which makes it really fast to do changes to reports. Yeah. So the templates for sales and purchases is really a great feature in ForNAV version 3. The reason why we have a different purchase template from a sales template is that when we interviewed customers, we discovered that a lot of customers have a completely different layout for purchase documents than for sales documents. Sometimes your purchase documents will be landscape and the sales documents will be a portrait. So it made a lot of sense for us to generate those two as different templates. We optimized and tested our reports for OCR recognition. I found out the hard way using my own NAV that both the Microsoft Word layout that they ship and the Microsoft RDLC layout both fail to be recognized by some OCR vendors. And we actually tested if the ForNAV sales invoice could be scanned and recognized by OCR. And the most frequently used OCR vendors can actually read the ForNAV sales invoice without any issues. The sales and purchase documents are generated using PowerShell. And this goes to the next bullet point as well. We try to avoid code cloning. And this is very interesting for larger ISVs. Larger ISVs may well want to change our documents. And you can see that we actually have quite a number of documents. We have all the VAT documents, sales and purchase. We have all the tax documents, sales and purchase. And then we have the purchase templates and the sales templates. If you make changes to those reports, you have to make them in a lot of other reports as well. And what we've done is we've created the PowerShell script, and the PowerShell script is actually able to generate a sales invoice from a credit memo. And the reason why we can do that is that we actually created a number of code units that avoid the typical code cloning that you see in the standard Microsoft reports. So we have a function which is called get VAT amount lines, and the get VAT amount line code unit takes a header, but if I go to the definition of this code unit, this record that you see here is actually a variant, And a variant means that I can actually call into this API, and it's agnostic of the control that it uses. And then after that, it's converted into a record reference, and it will throw an error if it's not a valid type, right? It will actually scan if it's a valid type for using with VAT. And this elimination of code cloning actually allows us to simply generate one document using PowerShell from another document, and we don't have to update all these individual ones. Last but not least, the documents are API prepared. And this is kind of a technical term, but if you look at our sales invoice, for example, some customers, if they have the sales invoice, they want to print all the serial numbers that they have shipped. Some customers want to print the bill of materials from assembly orders, or some customers may want to print the drop shipment information. You could add all of that to the report, but that would make the report insanely complicated, and we wanted to make the report as simple as possible. So basically what we did is we prepared the report to be easily enhanced with APIs that will print the details if you want, and those APIs are on the roadmap for the next iteration of the standard ForNAV reports. We are running out of time. We're almost at the top of the hour. There's a lot of stuff to show you here, really enthusiastic about it. The last thing I quickly want to show you is the financial statements. The financial statements are designed in the same way as the document reports. They are optimized for the designer. They support Watermark. They are customizable without CAL code. But one of the main things that I'm super enthusiastic about is that they have an optimized Excel layout. And this is the main feedback that we got from a couple of financial controllers that we worked with in order to make these reports. If I switch to a machine where I have Excel installed, if I print my aged account receivable, if I print this report to PDF, it looks really nice, and I can save this report as PDF and send it to my controller, and I can really make them happy with a pretty report. But normally, if I want to use this data in Excel, if I print the data in Excel, I get a lot of garbage that I don't want in Excel. If I print a report to Excel, I typically want to slice and dice the data in a pivot table. And we actually optimize this experience. If you open this report now in Excel, you will see that there's no header, there's no footer, there's no company information. Everything that I normally would have to remove is already removed. The formatting is exactly the way you want it to be. So an amount is an amount and a date is a date. And this allows you very easily to import a pivot table. And in the pivot table, I can easily start slicing and dicing on this data, and this is exactly what your financial users will want if they start using this. This is not using the Excel buffer table. This does not require code cloning. This is simply looking at the ForNAV controls. And if you have an end user and the user wants to have more buckets, or the user wants to change the way this report works, if you change the layout, the Excel layout will automatically change as well. So there's no code duplication or anything going on behind the scenes. This will also work in the web client. This is the hyperlink where you can find the watermarks, by the way. So you can download them from the ForNAV website.
ForNAV is here to help you with reports. We are ready to talk. Are you?